Good morning, everyone. My name is Bill Stow, and I'm the moderator for today's session. I would like to thank you for joining the webinar on building successful rural and small community recycling and waste reduction programs. These sessions arise from some research conducted over the past 8 months by my colleague, Terry Link, and me. The research project has been graciously and generously supported by the Michigan State University Center for Community and Economic Development. It's part of the comprehensive economic recovery initiative that MSU is participating in. So over the course of these months, our research has included identifying and interviewing more than a dozen Michigan and national leaders involved in recycling and waste reduction. We visited numerous recycling and waste reduction centers in Michigan and reviewed current literature on waste reduction and recycling. The two sessions today are offering insight from some of the leaders that we met, and so that they can share their experience in the hope that it can assist small and rural communities that are trying to enhance or enhance their own either start or enhance their own operations. As part of the research, we'll also produce a final report for MSU, and that will be completed sometime before the end of this year and will be available to anyone that's interested in receiving it. So as seasoned veterans, Terry and I, in both veterans in recycling and waste reduction efforts over the past 30 years, we recognize that the dominant waste system is designed for urban settings. And that makes it all the more challenging for small and rural communities for longer distances and the difficulties aggregating sufficient quantities of recyclable materials makes finding a desirable profit margin elusive. Finding a profit margin in any recycling industry in the past 5 years has been elusive, but it's especially difficult in those small and rural settings. So we're doing two sessions. This morning's session will focus on starting and enhancing rural and small community initiatives. So it's entitled Identifying Local Opportunities, Building Relationships, and Community Support. So as the first step in strengthening rural and small community programs. We're really fortunate and pleased to bring two panelists with experience in successfully building and guiding programs that help rural communities. First, let me introduce Esther Williams. She is Executive Director of the Midland Recyclers. It's a multi-material nonprofit community recycling organization serving residents in Midland County and more. And secondly, Brian Ukina. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Recycle Ann Arbor, which is a nonprofit recycling organization serving the city of Ann Arbor and surrounding areas for over 40 years. Andy Gell which is the president of Bay Area Recyclers for Charities, is not able to be with us today. So we'll move forward with the speakers that we have. Let me turn it over to you first, Esther, and ask you to provide a brief overview of your history with Midland Recyclers, what your organization does, and who you serve.
Okay, thank you. So our organization is a 501c3 nonprofit, and it was formed in 1987, and it was really actually done by our Midland County Board of County Commissioners. And then it was handed over to the volunteers. So for nearly 35 years, we've been operating, recycling center. We started out just downtown, using a trailer. And then in 1991, a building was built here at the City of Midland landfill. So it's a city-owned landfill, which is kind of unique too. And so we have a building here, and we process about 2 million pounds of recycling a year, which stayed really steady even through all the different changes in curbside programs starting up. But it's just that with more awareness. So we serve the Great Lakes Bay region. We do a lot of education. So our mission, is to educate people on the benefits of reuse and recycling, as well as operating the recycling center. So we get tours and we do free tours. Teachers can bring, and they can also, we usually split the tours up with our landfill. So the landfill superintendent here, they've been really good. They'll take the kids on the bus and they'll get to learn all about the landfill, and then they can come here, learn all about the recycling. And so we get groups, tour groups, and then we provide volunteer and work experience opportunities for individuals and groups of all ages and abilities. So people can come, no matter what their abilities or interests, we can put them to work. Of course, we always have work to do. And then we specialize in taking things, we distinguish ourselves from the for-profit world by taking things that are hard to recycle, which are like the polystyrene foam, styrofoam. Being in Dow country, we don't call it styrofoam here, and plastic bags, and vinyl siding. We take electronics, batteries of all types, shredded paper, along with all the regular kind of recycling. And then we promote, like, we'll take any size box. People drag in their huge TV boxes and boxes from barbecues and things like that. We do take scrap metal also. So that's, so that's what we're all about, taking hard to recycle things, offering volunteer opportunities and education opportunities.
Can you refresh my memory of how large a community you serve? I mean, what would you estimate the population to be in all those neighboring areas?
I'm not really sure. It's like 80,000, maybe that's in Midland. So I don't know, 1 million people.
Okay.
Probably.
Thank you.
In the greater Great Lakes region, because people come from a fair distance. I'm always surprised. I'll ask people where they come from, and they'll be saving up their polystyrene foam and plastic bags and hard to recycle things and bring them in like once a month or maybe once or twice a year.
Yeah, I think that is illustrative of how difficult it is in those outlying areas that don't have programs, how far the dedicated folks that want to recycle will come to help that. Brian, I know that you're, people may be saying, well, Ann Arbor is not a smaller rural area either. And I know, so we've got the benefit of you working in an urban area, but you have a lot of experience as well in small communities in the recycling. Can you give us a little background on yourself and some of the things, what the basic services of Recycle Ann Arbor are? Sure,
yeah. It's true. Ann Arbor's got a population of 120,000, so it's a pretty good sized city. But most of my experience is in the South, in Oklahoma and Arkansas. And I started a single county solid waste authority in a very rural area, of countywide population of about 20,000. And then ended up, I was a director of a solid waste district in Arkansas. They segment the whole state, kind of like Ohio, where they segment the whole state into solid waste districts. And I had a 9-county district, which is basically from Fort Smith, Arkansas to Little Rock, Arkansas, and not including either of those large metropolitan areas. Most of my communities were about 800 to 3,000 people. So very rural, from some of the wealthiest communities in Arkansas, which isn't huge, but to some of the poorest in the nation. So wide experience in that area. And we had grants programs, and I provided technical assistance and things like that. So that's kind of where I cut my teeth and grew up, and ran a number of nonprofits since then. And the Twin Cities in Minnesota and in Boulder, Colorado, EcoCycle, and then here in Ann Arbor. So, but just speaking a little bit about Recycle Ann Arbor, kind of who they are. It's the city of Ann Arbor and Eastern Washtenaw County is basically what we serve, and we're also a 501c3 nonprofit, mission-based organization, community-based, mission-based organization, very similar to what Esther mentioned. We're a zero waste organization. We've been in business about 40 years. Started, that's interesting, the way Esther's organization started. That's great. Boy, getting that top-down support is great. We actually came from concerned citizens with flatbed pickup trucks, picking up newspaper and school buses and things like that. So kind of grew from the bottom and very much from a grassroots place. And it shows in who Recycle Ann Arbor is. But being a zero waste organization, what we're about is similar to what Esther's talking about, educate people, but we're about demonstrating that zero waste is a viable option. People use that term zero waste and they think that's impossible. So we're about creating some demonstrations that actually show that waste is not inevitable, that it is completely preventable. And so what does REA do to create those demonstrations or those business units? That's what we are, is a business, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit. We're a business, and we have a curbside recycling program where we have 6 trucks and we go out and pick up the recyclables, and that's funded with a city contract. We have a multi-year city contract that we've held since it started about 30 years ago. This community has determined that they want to work with the nonprofit, but we still have to put it out for bid every 5 years. And yep, we bid against Waste Management and Republic, and yep, we whoop them. So we're awful proud of that. But that's our first demonstration, is how you collect recyclables. And then also we have something that we're just working on now. It's you might hear some construction in the background. I'm at our materials recovery facility, or our MRF, where we process the recyclables. We're just getting ready to start up. We're actually doing the wet commissioning of the equipment tomorrow, so or Saturday and Sunday. So it's really exciting for us, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on, about how we got that funded. But again, city contract, multi-year contract, allows us to do that service. And then the MRF is about the demonstration of processing, how you process the material in a zero waste setting as opposed to in a traditional waste management sort of setting. So it operates different, but I mean, for our purposes today, we're not trying to fill a landfill hole. We're all about recycling, and so we are all about transparency and fairness. So the smaller communities that we will work with in the surrounding area will know where their stuff goes. They know they're getting a fair price. They know the jobs are staying local. So that's what the materials recovery facility is about. We also have a expanded drop-off station or a drop-off center for harder to recycle materials. All the things Esther mentioned, as well as electronics and like bulbs and a host of other things. So the MRF Neal, it actually processes single stream recyclables. It's a kind of a boutique single stream MRF that processes about 30,000 tons a year of material. So I saw that on the chat, just wanted to mention that. But our expanded drop-off station is very similar to Esther's, and we process about 3,000 tons a year of material. It's funded through fee for service. It's a very unusual sort of model. Where people pay when they come in to recycle, depending on what they bring in. So kind of an unusual situation, but and that could change, but that's kind of where we are now as far as funding. We also have a construction and demolition recovery facility, kind of like a transfer station. If you guys know what a transfer station is, where material gets dumped and then loaded back and then taken to the landfill in rural areas. A lot of times there isn't the density, so that stuff has to be transferred a long ways. So transfer stations become very important to conglomerate material and get economies of scale. So that C&D facility, construction demolition facility, does that. But we also do our best to recover what we can. And that's just construction demolition debris. We're not sorting through garbage, we're sorting through construction demolition debris. So that's another fee for services. That's how we pay for what we're doing. It's a permitted facility, a transfer station, could do a lot there. Advocacy, outreach, and education, similar to Esther, we do the same thing with education, but then also advocacy, which has become more and more important. Really, I mean, if I could say one thing about this group here, you sometimes don't realize how powerful you all are on a state level, and legislators really need to hear from us and our specific issues in small and rural communities. So advocacy is another thing that we do at Recycle Ann Arbor and outreach. And then we've got a new project that we're working on that's just starting. We purchased 17 acres and we're building a eco park. We call it an eco park. I noticed Neil's here. It kind of looks like the facilities out in California, the Urban Ore Project and some of those. So it'll be similar to that. But the idea is to really deal with material, not just a one-stop shop, but really deal with the material at its source and be able to talk to people, what we call upstream and downstream. So talking to the manufacturers, hey man, this isn't working. This stuff isn't recyclable and you keep saying it's recyclable, stop it. And then sort of the tail end where does the stuff go? What mills do what mills need to hear from us and what they need to tell us about the quality of the material and what it can be made into, and bringing that material to its highest and best use. Basically meaning we want a pop bottle. We'd like for it to get made back into a new pop bottle because that has the best chance of getting recycled again and again versus creating a mixed plastic item that only has one use. Everybody here knows recycling, it's the loop, it's the circularity. That's what really gives recycling its value. So we have contracts with end users to that, guaranteeing bottle-to-bottle recycling, things like that. So those are kind of the projects that we're working on, our demonstrations.
That's very exciting. We did have one question come in as you were talking, Brian, and that is, does Recycle Ann Arbor collect single stream or double stream?
We do. We are a single stream materials recovery facility, which is unusual for it to be sort of a boutique size, a small size like ours, but to process single stream material. It was very specific circumstances that brought us to that. And we did look very carefully at going to a two-stream system, going back, I guess you'd call it, to a two-stream system. And we just, for a lot of different reasons, we determined that going to single stream, because of the nature of who we are, a private entity, made the most sense for us to stay with the single stream.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, let me ask both of you. We'll start with you, Esther. If you were to leave Midland Recyclers and go to a rural or small community, what would be some of the obstacles or problems that you would think you would see, and how do you think you could overcome that? And I'll ask this to both of you, but start with you, Esther. If you using your experience at Midland, what do you think would happen if you tried to start a new program in a rural area?
Great. Well, first of all, you'd have to site your facility. We've been real fortunate that the city of Midland lets us, we use the property here at the city of Midland, so we don't have any rent obligations, and that's probably helped us immeasurably. And and then my, the support of the community would be important to, it would have to be pretty a strong interest and desire of the residents to start a recycling. And especially if it's going to be like ours, where we take the things that are hard to recycle that are marginally profitable. It's the one thing that's made it difficult. And then obtaining the equipment. Right now, the markets are strong for the commodities for the recycle, for the cardboard and the plastics and for the steel. So that would, that would work on that side. And that's how we're funded. Our general operating fund, we fund ourselves through the sale of recyclables. Plus we do all the nonprofit things like fundraisers. We have fundraisers. Right.
What would be some of the communities, organizations you would look to first for support?
Chamber of Commerce. And if it's in Michigan, of course, I have the Michigan Recycling Coalition is invaluable.
Right.
Things like that. And then maybe some of the service organizations, they have Rotary, Kiwanis kind of thing. But probably the businesses like the Chamber of Commerce, because right now it's very strong. Many businesses want to be sustainable. They have goals. Some want to go to zero waste. So, and they, it's coming down from, their corporate or their, people. So if you could get a good base of businesses to get started with, that would be helpful.
So it sounds like pulling together like a network, whatever works in a community, the strongest elements pulling together in one area of support for recycling.
Right. And get some champion who's a local influential would be important, that people respect, and to help get the funding and things like that. Open doors for you.
Let me thank you, Esther. Let me ask the same question to you, Brian. If you were in a small community and not a urban area of 1 million people, what kind of problems do you think you would experience, and how would you try to overcome them?
I agree with Esther as far as building that coalition. I would say, it's just sort of the 101 of it, but having a champion that's passionate about making something happen, a leader that can, and they come from the most unusual places sometimes, including me. So having a real champion in that area, I think is first. But having that top-down support, like Esther has in her community with the Board of Commissioners or whoever it is really key to. But overall, it's an issue of vision and resources. And so first, creating a clear vision, of what you're looking for. And boy, a really passionate person with a clear vision is unstoppable. And so they will find those resources in that community. But I agree with all the resources that Esther mentioned. I would add to that, this is true in Arkansas, and I'm assuming it's true in Michigan as well, in the small and rural communities. The faith-based community is really important. It was really important to what I did down in Arkansas, and spoke at a lot of churches and a lot of picnics and a lot of things like that. And I think that's a really good resource to use as well. I think overall resources, and I think, once you have that clear vision and you have that top-down support, a lot of times you can garner the resources. I agree with Esther from the business community and from the residents, because there is a burgeoning group of residents and businesses who are ready to start working on the sustainability issue or to continue their work. And this is something that they can do locally. Everybody knows, everybody's reading the newspaper, everybody's seeing what's going on with climate change. And that's the real challenge that we have here, is climate change. It is here, and we are seeing it in every facet of what we do. And the awareness is absolutely there. And so it's harnessing or lassoing that energy, and then you can, in our case, put long-term contracts together. Sometimes if you're I don't know if there are any decision makers here. So I think it's sort of putting putting the frame around what you're trying to do into a longer range plan, maybe not a 1-year contract, but maybe a 10-year contract. Mm-hmm. And that allows those bankers and those financial people to see, oh, they've done a pro forma here. it's spread out over a longer period of time. So it makes it more palatable, because from me, the challenge is climate change. For me, putting the resources in place is a question of focusing on what you have in the community and really garnering those strengths of your particular community. And it's a little bit different for every community. I had 26 mayors that I worked with in those 9 counties, and they all had very particular characters and cultures. And so it's hard for somebody to wrangle, but at the same time, if you can zero in on those groups and really start getting them involved, it's amazing the resources that you have. And for me, I would much rather help my community right where I am. And that feels a lot more real to me, a way to affect climate change than some global thing, or even, buying an electric car or putting solar panels on my house. That's all cool. But what I can do every day is recycle the best I can and work with groups the best I can. So I think that's really what people are coming to realize. And that's sort of the strength that you have in your community. I think probably another big issue or challenge is logistics for smaller communities. I mentioned the transfer station issue. So that's just where you consolidate enough material where you've got truckload quantities so you can send it out to market, whatever it is. And in some cases in rural communities, you got to use larger MRFs. So you have to transport that stuff. But like I said, in Arkansas, in those 9 counties, I had 16 transfer stations in those 9 counties. And those transfer stations became the hub for how we had that harder to recycle material that was accepted at the transfer station, traditional recyclables that people brought in, because they will bring them in. Like Esther mentioned, they'll come from a long ways away out in the country to bring their stuff in, because people really want to do the right thing. So I would say use those transfer stations for sort of the logistics, transportation part of that challenge.
Okay.
I think
Andrew,
a couple
go
other
ahead.
things we were challenged, sorry, was COVID. This has been a huge thing for us to overcome. We've had huge issues with the supply chain being broken by COVID. So what we're doing is we have to put protocols in place. It makes it harder to meet in person, which is what it's all about, man. I don't care how cool Zoom is. That face-to-face handshake makes the difference in a small community. So COVID's really put a dent in that, and those supply chains have really been interrupted. So that you deal with it on a case-by-case basis. You don't ever forget that COVID's still here, and you don't ever forget those. It has to become second nature. So people respect that as you work with them. So that was another issue. And then, like I mentioned in the beginning, the real issue and the real challenge is climate change, how we can affect it.
All right, thank you. That's an excellent list of issues to deal with. But let me circle back around to one of the things that you both said earlier about funding. And let me just open it up to say, and we'll start with you, Esther. What would be the perfect funding mechanism for a small rural community to get started?
Well,
I mean, how would that? Who would you look for if, say, there was a local community champion and yourself, and you were proposing a blank slate as to how to do this right? What would be the ideal funding approach?
probably would be a millage.
Okay.
Could be, and then we rely heavily on our local foundations. We're fortunate in Midland, there's quite a few, local foundations. But then in Michigan, the Eagle has quite a few, grant opportunities. So maybe state or federal grant opportunities for infrastructure improvements for the startup.
Mm-hmm.
We pretty much fund our own program through all the work that we do, selling the recyclables, fundraisers. We do have a business recycling program. We have over 100 businesses that we go and pick up recycling from. But then if we need capital items like new baler, or the repaving the parking lot, which is amazingly expensive, we have gone to our local foundations for support.
Okay.
We've had to make the case here in Midland, a strong case of, not being in competition with the for-profit businesses like Republican Waste Management. Because we offer the businesses and the public things that, that Republican Waste Management, don't. They don't offer the recycling of the foam and the plastic bags and things like that.
Mhm.
We've distinguished ourselves also with, the best customer service too, so.
So again, it would be just a multi-thronged approach to secure enough basic funding to keep the doors open.
Right.
Brian, let me ask you the same question, but with also a little bit different twist. There was a question that came in about how you are funding the MRF that you're building. I mean, there's some discussion that it's unusual, as you said, for a smaller community to have a MRF. How does that fit into your funding strategy, and how do you handle the logistics and the funding of that in addition to all the other things you're doing? What would be
Sure.
your perfect funding scenario?
Sure. So, the reason that we're doing it in our community is because we want to keep those resources in our community. So who we're asking for money is in our community first. And that's where Esther was going was, I think too, where you might've been going, Esther, was the fee for service or sort of a business model of people who are interested use the service is a very good foundation to have. And so as nonprofits, we're supposed to sort of cut the edge of things. We're supposed to do the things that are over and above, the things that are cutting edge, the things that are not being done, and sort of help mainstream those things. And I think that's what Esther's talking about. That's what I'm talking about. So that's a good foundation, is fee for service. Just like any other business model, but it can't be everything, because you're cutting the edge of new things that don't have real straightforward sort of business models. So we reach out to the brands, the Coca-Colas and those guys of the world, through the recycling partnership and through the closed loop fund. And we took a loan out from the closed loop fund, just like a regular loan that you take out, for about 20% of the total funding of the project. And the closed loop fund is very experienced in working with materials recovery facilities. So they know our pains and suffering, and they also know a good business model from a bad one. You got to have a good business model to start with. So it's just because you're a nonprofit doesn't mean you don't have to have a good business model. You do. So we went to closed loop fund for about 20% of the funding. We went to our local bank for the bulk of the funding. But really, the thing that gave them the most confidence was what Esther mentioned earlier. We were very much a community member for many years. We've been a community member for 45 years. So they know us. They know we're going to be here. We have that foundation. We had those relationships through our board of directors, through our supporters. We had that foundation so that we could have that conversation with the bank. And the bank prioritized us over other funding because we are a local community based, and they actually featured us in the bank. Although the branches are local, they got bought out by a multinational. But their annual report, it featured us. We were the centerfold in there. So they love to talk about that. That's their gig. That's their whole thing. This is why we're doing what we're doing, is to be able to fund stuff like this. So don't underestimate that, your strength in your community. And then so that was the bulk of the funding, which is about,
Did you say that was a local bank, Brian, or
it started out as a local bank when I started working on this project 3 years ago, but they got swallowed up by the big multinationals.
Okay.
Now it's level one. But everybody has a credit union. Everybody has a local bank, whether they're a local bank branch, and people in the community know you as a community leader, as a nonprofit. So that goes back to, again, Esther's point about building your coalition and having those sort of leading edge people, or those early adopters in the community that are supporting you. And so anyway, level one was the name of our new bank. It was Ann Arbor State Bank. And then closed loop fund. Then we did receive a small amount of funding from the Recycling Partnership, which is another industry supported organization that gave us a small amount of funding. And the impetus for all of them to support this and for all of them to fund this was, like I said, a good business model, but also that 10-year contract that gives them stability. They can say, the funders can see, okay, man, these guys they've got funding coming in for the next 10 years. So kind of to Esther's point about millage and those kinds of things, that's good. But this sort of fee for service, or this, we're contracting with you for services, very easy for the city or the county to understand, oh, I would have had to provide those services some other way, so I can provide them this way. Hey, maybe I can do a longer term contract so we can work with the local community based. And that's not true in every community. It happened to be true in Ann Arbor. So that 10-year contract is really what helps support the MRF construction.
Okay. And then there was a question again regarding the MRF. Can you describe the challenges you have between the transfer stations and the logistical challenge that you have in your community? I mean, it seems like a pretty heavy investment in trucks and other kinds of equipment. Do you subcontract that out, or is that all part of Recycle Ann Arbor?
So Recycle Ann Arbor doesn't have transfer stations. They have the recovery yard, which is the construction demolition that acts kind of like a transfer station.
Okay. Right.
But we call it a C&D recovery. But for the recyclables, we currently transfer those recyclables to another MRF, and we just use this building to transfer the material in truckload quantities. And we contract with a subcontractor that has all the trucks and everything that you need to do that.
Okay, it looks like Brian warned us that he was, because he's at his yard today working on the MRF, that he was using his cell phone and might have some problems. He'll rejoin us in a second. But Esther, while Brian is trying to get back on, maybe we can move on to the next question that I'd like to pose. And that is looking into the future. What kind of opportunities do you see that would help rural and small community programs be more successful? I mean, are you seeing things emerge in the marketplace right now, or what are the kind of new opportunities that any kind of recycling organization might take advantage of that wasn't within their historic buckets?
Well, right now, the commodity markets for the recyclables, cardboard and plastics, they're very robust. They're at the highest prices I've ever seen them, the value. So, and I think, if they can, stay at, they're way high right now. They can't stay this high, but as long as they don't go to the lows that they have been through the years I've been here. So, that would help. That's going to help quite a bit. Maybe they'll be more stable. There is more infrastructure in the United States, like cardboard mills. There's a huge demand for cardboard, obviously, because everybody's having things delivered to their houses. And the other thing is, more and more businesses are getting on board with the climate change, like Brian was talking about, which is great. there's still a lot of holdouts, and that might be one of the problems in rural areas is the buy-in for the reason why recycling is important. That would concern me. Because it's a little political. But yeah, the businesses have these sustainability goals, and if you can take the things that are hard to recycle, that would help them meet those goals. There's a lot of zero waste goals out there too. Also from like the federal level, the global climate change and initiatives and leadership on a national level. Like presently, I think it's better than it has been. So that's got to be good.
Have you targeted or identified any new services that you think might have potential for bringing in revenue for middle and recyclers that you haven't done in the past?
We do we don't charge for people to drop off recycling. So that's something we look at, especially we get businesses that drop things off here in huge quantities, and we've considered, since that's a big well, staffing issues are difficult. There's staffing, everybody across the board is having trouble with staffing. So for us, yes, possibly maybe charging them, because if they're just coming and dropping it off, they're saving a lot of money from taking it to the landfill. So I think they would see that as fair, as long as we kept it, below what they would have to pay to drop it off, plus their time and effort to bring it over. But also for us, our business recycling program, we have over 100 businesses right now that we serve. Yet most of them have come to us. So I think there's a huge potential in our area for, if we actually started making sales calls, we could really build that program, huge. And now we managed to get, we have 2 trucks now. We have a box truck and then also a pickup truck that has a 16-foot enclosed trailer that goes around. So during the COVID time, that pickup truck and trailer, sufficed. But now things are starting to get busy. People are starting to get back into the offices, and our businesses are needing, more pickups, which will help, so that'll bring in, more income, both ways, because we charge a fee to pick it up, and then of course selling the recyclables that come in.
A couple of the things that I remember about our visit to your facility was the reuse section of your building that you had, and then also the self-shredding machine that you were just installing. So the paper shredder.
Right. So those are 2 areas that bring in people that might not have even, realized what we do or what we are. Because when we first started, everybody got it. We were a grassroots, drop-off recycling center. But as time progressed and curbside programs started, and since we're on city property, we have one of our biggest problems is getting people to realize we're not a city agency, and that we're not funded by the city or county, and that we're a nonprofit, and then also that we are not the company that comes and gets the curbside materials either. That's separate from that. So that's been a struggle ongoing, because sometimes people just don't realize it, and as soon as they do, and being a nonprofit, sometimes the funding's so low, you don't have enough time or money to do a lot of promotion and marketing, which if you did could, just help exponentially grow the program. Right. So that too is another thing that we're really working on, is the public awareness. We have a brand new website, which is going to help, and I really think once we just add a couple more staff people, the process area and the truck staff, we'll be able to grow that business recycling program. So I think that's a good opportunity for funding the program.
Excellent. Well, good luck on those initiatives. I hope they are successful for you. Brian, well, we had a little bit of problem with your cell phone, so you kind of went out on us for a second, but let me ask you same question I just asked Esther, and that is, I know you've been doing a lot of, well, I'll call non-traditional things, bringing in new markets to the recycling that a lot of other recycling initiatives aren't doing. But given that and what you see out in the marketplace, what kind of opportunities, unmet opportunities, are you seeing out there for recycling centers that many may not have thought about? I mean, for instance, when Terry and I were doing our interviews, we heard a lot of interest about reuse and remanufacturing and composting and all kinds of things like that. So what do you see as new opportunities for recycling centers?
As far as the business side or the operational side, our eco park is really where we see our future, and that's a lot of really, which I think is the larger opportunity out in the marketplace, which is the brands and the manufacturers can see the writing on the wall. They have fought producer responsibility. Producer responsibility is where they share in the responsibility of paying for recycling. And so the state of Maine has just passed legislation where authentically they are a producer responsibility state. So the manufacturers and the brand names have to participate in the recycling of those items. And I don't know, for Esther, for me, sometimes it feels like I'm sort of standing at the tailpipe trying to catch what I can. And recycle what I can, but the notion of really crawling up that tailpipe or looking at how that's built and really being able to have an authentic conversation with those manufacturers to say, look, you're pooping on us here. Stop it. Here's what we need from you, is really exciting for us folks that have been recycling for a long time. So producer responsibility is probably overarching the largest opportunity I see in being able to marry the producers with the recycling facilities, because really where we stand is at this crossroads. We're in this really good spot as recycling handlers, processors, whatever you want to call us. Like I mentioned, we can look upstream and say, stop it and help us out. We need help. We want to recycle your stuff, man. Just make it authentic. Don't greenwash it. Make it real and make sure that it works for me and give me the equipment that I need to be able to recycle this stuff. And then at the tail end, at the mills, what's the problem for you? What do we need to sort of look at? So I would say biggest opportunity, producer responsibility, and being careful with producer responsibility. So you don't just sell your soul for a new baler or something like that, that it's very authentic. What they're doing with the material, what it's getting made into, is it recyclable again and again, and truly entering into a partnership and a relationship with those brands and those end users. And people that know me would be just, I'm speaking heresy to talk about working with the producers and the manufacturers, but all the major ones, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, they all see the writing on the wall and they're all supporting producer responsibility. So that's a huge opportunity. I think if you're sort of in the beginning stages or just starting a project, man, what an opportunity right now to reinvent what you have or to invent something that's authentic, not just a baler to bale up cardboard. That's how I started. It's really being able to enter into a dialogue about how zero waste, including reuse and especially reuse, rethinking, and then recycling and reusing can help climate change, can help your sustainability plan in your community. That's a huge opportunity to be able to reinvent yourself into a zero waste organization. And there's some really, I think, strong momentum for that. So those are the two big opportunities I see.
Excellent. Thanks very much. And I'll just say that this particular topic on what are the emerging opportunities is going to be delved in much deeper this afternoon at 2 p.m. on the second session that Terry Link will be moderating. So I encourage everyone that's interested in that and what the future may bring is to attend that second session.
Bill, I wanted to mention a couple other things because the statement that Neil made there. I've never seen a state support recycling like is being done here in Michigan. Eagle has placed major funds, major support through next cycle and through other projects. So, and our MRF was funded in part by a state grant. And so that infrastructure, that don't forget that. That's huge here in Michigan and around the country. There's national legislation around Build Back Better that includes national dollars for as far as our opportunity goes, because those are definitely growing and there's a lot of momentum for those.
Great. Well, thanks for that additional detail. As questions come in, we'll get to those, but as I see at this point, there aren't any new questions. So let me circle back to some of the important segments of addressing the community support of any recycling program. So I'd like to ask each of you, how specifically do you address the business sector? I think you both said you have business sector programs where you go out and help industry or manufacturers or businesses. How have you found the most success in reaching that segment of your stakeholder group?
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, I think we've lost Brian for a second.
So when I start talking to a business that maybe hasn't come to me first, I try to start with the economic benefits they might enjoy, like instead of paying that dumpster fee $80 or $100, we'll pick up the recycling for less than that. And then of course, obviously, then I talk about our program, because anything we do benefits people right here in the the Tri-County area. And because we work in the students in the school programs that we do, and we work with the people with disabilities, all those kind of warm fuzzy things that we do. So I try to hit different levels, and sometimes it takes a couple, but I always start with the economic, their cost savings.
Mhm.
Because there are businesses that we have lots of customers that might have a dumpster that only gets dumped once a week, so they're not going to see any savings from that, but they have other goals that they're trying to achieve. And sometimes we'll get into a business from the top, or maybe it's from the the office professional that's harassing them, or maybe there's some of the businesses we've got here in Midland, kind of conservative town, is a new maintenance or person will come in and see that they aren't recycling, and they'll be like, what's going, so it's kind of interesting, the different ways that we've gotten some of our business customers.
So you see it in Midland as a combination of sometimes businesses reach out to you and other times you reach out to them, and it's a combination of both ways.
Well, if I see somebody out bringing stuff here, I'll talk to them about our program, or out, because I'm really active with our Chamber of Commerce. It's business clients here, and then with the service clubs. So I think that's important, especially at my level. So I belong to Zonta, but I get invited sometimes to speak, like at Rotary or Kiwanis, and I see them out in the community, because we try to be real active so that people see us. And on our recycling truck, we businesses can sponsor us by paying to have their logo put on the side.
Mm-hmm.
So promote that too.
No, that's a good idea. Brian, we lost you just a second again, but we're talking now about what kind of outreach activities do you have to the business community and the regions you service? How do you handle the business community?
Sort of on a business by business level, I ask them what their goals are. if the goals align with kind of where we're headed, then I know I can help them. If I'm looking for the cheapest recycler I can find, then I'm probably not going to be able to help them out. So I don't waste a lot of time with that. So first we get aligned on values, and then engage in, whatever the conversation is. I think our bank has been really good about talking to a lot of businesses in our community. I think here in Ann Arbor, we have a downtown development district. We call it the DDD, or the downtown district, and it's a group, an alliance of forward-thinking businesses, and so that's another group that we strongly reach out to. And then, like Esther mentioned, the Kiwanis Rotary is a real good one to let folks know kind of who we are. But we engage with them on a number of ways there. A lot of our businesses are very interested in this extended producer responsibility and how that's going to shape what they do in the future. Some of them are a lot of them are restaurateurs, and they want to know, hey man, extended producer responsibility going to affect me? So.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for that.
Being able to engage in whatever level that they're at, but getting the conversation going by what are the Sure, I apologize for the weak signal. Like I mentioned, they've got our internet on and off, so I apologize.
That's okay. It's mostly coming through, so 90% anyway, or 95. We have a few minutes left. I've kind of exhausted the prepared questions I had, so let me offer both of you an opportunity to ask the audience the question. We have a very varied stakeholder group that have registered for the conference. Anything you would like feedback from any comments that come in are recorded and will be available to anyone that wants to see this session later on, can look at it and see the comments. So any thoughts you have or questions you have for the varied group of people that are listening to this session?
I got questions for Neil, but we'll talk later.
Okay.
And get into a good discussion. This session this afternoon, I'm going to try to attend. I don't know if I have time, but I'm going to try to attend. That's going to be a really exciting sort of statement or question, is if we can help, if Recycle Ann Arbor can help in the smaller communities the hearts are. So if we can help by providing anything, information or whatever, just we'd be interested to help if we can.
Excellent.
Well, we're always looking for leads for recycling what we already are recycling, plus new things. Like, we can't recycle colored glass here. It just has to go too far. And so we're always looking for like cottage industries. We thought we had a couple lined up, like making garden stones, but and it's been a long time since we've gotten to network with our peers. Although the Michigan Recycling Coalition Conference is coming up the 28th and 29th of October here in Bay City. So I'm excited for that. Because we get so swamped here, we don't have really time to make our lives easier by finding new markets and things. So that's one of the things. That's one of my number 2 question that I get asked about here is the recycling colored glass. So.
Okay.
I want to get together with you at the conference, Esther, because I got some folks we're working with Owens Corning and the glass recycling folks, and a lot of folks have that question. So let's put our heads together, see what we can do. I wanted to mention also that Neil had asked about the Next Cycle program, the Michigan Next Cycle program, and whether that was a potential source of funding. So I wanted to clarify that absolutely, we work with Matt Nod and RRS. Actually, RRS is one of our founding members of our board, and Next Cycle is a really helpful project. So I would highly recommend for those who are looking for technical support or for funding that they contact Michigan Next Cycle, and you can Google it. And I don't know what the website is, but give them a holler because they got years and years of experience on the technical side, and they got lots of help on the money side too.
Okay. I'd like to add in also to anyone interested in that bottle or glass issue to look at the city of Marquette. They are a long ways away from market, so they're kind of trying to come up with solutions locally, working with the road commissions and the local university to find ways to use glass locally. So I'm not sure what the result is, but it's just another resource anyone interested in could check into.
Great.
It looks like Terry on the chat wanted to mention the refillable issue too, and that is one of our Eco Park issues at Recycle Ann Arbor. But there is a movement for the refillable bottles. It's not a strong movement, but there is one there, and that's the real solution for glass.
Okay.
Right.
Well, we reached our time limit, and I'd like to thank both you. Esther, thanks for taking the time, and Brian, I know you've got a lot going on, but this is both of you. It's been great feedback today. So thank you very much for being a panelist, and we look forward to a lot of other people looking at this session after the fact, and we'll be submitting our final report sometime in December. So anyone interested in what this year's research that Terry Link and I have been doing finds, you'll be able to get a copy of that report from Michigan State University's Center for Community Economic Development. Let me thank everyone that participated, and I'd like to again encourage you to attend the 2 o'clock session with Terry and Neil and Jacob and Bruce Odom, I think, are on the panel this afternoon. That'll be a good one as well. So